station, its management, or other advertisers.
This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hang.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to What the Health, an independent approach to your health span. Have you noticed how our healthcare system may not have your best interest in mind? Join Dr. Eckel in this fun and sometimes disturbing exploration of the state of healthcare and what it means for you. Now, here's your host, Dr. Eckel.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. This is What the Health, and I'm Dr. Greg Eckel, and today we are talking fasting and detoxification and diet variations. And I have got my guest and friend, Dr. Daniel Pompa, respected leader in the health and wellness space, educating practitioners and the public on the origins of inflammation-driven disease, the therapeutic application of ketogenic diet, fasting, ancestral-based health approaches, cellular healing, and detoxification. Although he's trained as a chiropractor, his authority is rooted in his own battle, having overcome neurotoxic illness, and heavy metal poisoning, which really laid him out, using his own unique cellular detox strategies to bring back his health. Dr. Pompa's journey back to health continued to lead him to a ferocious passion to research and learning beyond what is often readily understood. A relentless self-experimenter, Dr. Pompa has a passion for healing others. He's a true warrior from a pain to purpose mindset. I can totally relate. And he speaks about removing the cause of toxicity and inflammation, going upstream, and following a multi-therapeutic approach to health and healing. He's prolific. You can find Dr. Pompa at drpompa.com and on the weekly Cellular Healing TV podcast. He and his wife, Marilee, live in Park City, Utah, with their 5 children, 2 dogs, and 2 cats. He'll be joining us shortly here, coming on board momentarily. He's kind of wrapping up with some morning consults. So I wanted to really start out. I mean, a component of what we're talking about today is his book, which is Beyond Fasting. And this is a really great read. You know, we're hearing a ton about intermittent fasting and its benefits, and, you know, really looking at how do you fit that into the whole complete puzzle of health when we're talking about longevity. And, you know, he actually has a really cool term called stemnomics, which I'm going to get him to share with us. So, you know, when you look at the broad, there's all of these different interesting techniques, and it's like, where do these fit? We're going to talk ketogenic diet today. Ketogenic diet, this is something that we ran here at Nature Cures for a decade. We had a dedicated nutritionist on board. We were really running it in, here comes Dr. Pompa now. We were really running the ketogenic diet in with regards to cancer and cancer care. And we, you know, we ran it. It's a tough diet to implement. So I'm really excited. Hey, Dr. Pompa, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Awesome. I don't have a visual on you, but we've got, oh, there you are.
I don't have a visual on you yet, but I'll have it in a minute.
Okay, we see you. We see you. Awesome.
All right.
Well, welcome aboard. I gave you a very robust welcome and introduction, kind of setting the stage, talking about detoxification, fasting. I had the pleasure. Thank you for sending the book Beyond Fasting. We're going to talk through this thing, your whole concept of stenomics. Did I pronounce that right?
Stenomics. Yeah.
Stenomics.
I actually had to create that word because it didn't exist. So that's why you never heard of it.
I love it. So it's right in alignment with how, what we've been talking about on What the Health here. I'm really glad I had you on my Brain Degen Summit as well. And we're going to talk longevity and fasting and how you put the ketogenic diet together. all of this together, I kind of have these great, awesome guests every week for my listeners and viewers. And there's so many things to put together for folks. And I really want to, distill and boil and simplify. And I think your system, the way that you train practitioners and really take this message out, really does that uniquely in the Dr. Pompa fashion here. And so, maybe let's start out talking, why you wrote the book Beyond Fasting. I know we had this whole concept around, really going upstream and getting to root causes. And, we'll get into kind of posing the book in light of fasting, detox, and diet variation. I guess I'll pose the first question for you. Are weight gain, hormonal imbalance, and autoimmune conditions, are they just signs of aging, right? We always hear like, oh, get used to it, you're getting old.
Yeah. I hate that comment. I'm not criticizing you. That's a great way to start this.
No, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm passionate about the answer. Look, those things are common, but they're not normal. Right. And you also asked the question why I wrote the book. Look, I've taught fasting. Well, I've studied fasting since the 90s. It wasn't cool in the 90s. Trust me. It was just some natural hygiene society guys that were mostly vegan, vegetarians. And, I didn't fit in well with them necessarily, with their philosophy, but fasting, we resonated around, and I loved it. I read every book. I went to fasting clinics. I was just passionate about it because it harnesses the innate intelligence, right? My whole philosophy is the body is so smart, it knows what to do and how to heal. We can't create it. We can't make it any better. All we can do is remove the interference. Fasting does that. So it kind of just always fit that philosophy that I had, my major premise around healing. Remove the interference. The body darn well knows what to do. Fasting is that. I wrote the book though, because, it is years of teaching doctors my detox protocols. But fasting was kind of the thing that just wasn't cool. And really out of what I taught, we didn't talk about it because who wanted to know about fasting? Yet it was something I taught for years. Fasting became cool. And all of a sudden everyone wanted to know more about fasting. But, what I do in the book is the whole idea of the book is you don't just run a marathon. Obviously you might finish, but chances are you won't. Your results definitely wouldn't be that good unless you train. So it's basically what I teach for the doctors of this is what you do to maximize the benefits of a fast, right? And we can talk about those benefits, but by doing these things a month ahead, the results of your fast go through the roof. The body's ability to harness its innate intelligence and to heal go through the roof if you do these things first. That's what the book does.
That is, so the basic premise, one of the things that really comes through on my show is the body's innate intelligence. So I want you to address that a little bit more because we haven't really fleshed that out, but this is, very timely for people to understand there is an innate intelligence of the body to heal, right?
Don't get me started. I was on my doctor training call today and I hijacked the whole call because of the virtue signaling around wearing masks right now. There's a group that's fearful. There's a group that's just virtue signaling. They don't want to offend anyone else. There's a group who actually believes that by them wearing a mask, they're preventing the spread of this. And my point is we owe it to our following to educate them that this, with the statistics that are there right now, this thing is no worse than the flu. When have we worn masks or did shut down the economy over the flu? We haven't, but we know that even these statistics, they're actually skewed because hospitals are getting kickbacks for, and I don't even want to say the word because I don't want to get your podcast shut down, but the fact is that, there is a hype created for political reasons, mandatory vaccine reasons. We can go into all of the reasons, but the fact is that everyone's afraid of offending this, that, and the other thing, but we need to spread this virus to hit herd immunity. The more pathogens that people are exposed to, the healthier they are. I did a Facebook Live on this and it reached almost 3 million people because I was my comment was, my biggest fear is the new abnormal. Running from pathogens doesn't work. It's the opposite. The more pathogens we're exposed to, and I cited some studies on that, that the more exposure to pathogens, the less hygiene, basically philosophies or implements that we do, basically the healthier we are. The more hygiene strategies that we implement, the more unhealthy we are. Where are we headed as a society? Innate intelligence adapts with its environment, becomes stronger in the presence of pathogens. You know, the last 20 years of the microbiome research showed that people have less cancer, less autoimmune, less inflammatory gut issues, the more pathogens are exposed to, not the less. And I fear that the new abnormal is going to reverse this learning, that we've literally come from the stone ages of running from bacteria and pathogens and viruses. Here we are again because of these political drives. And honestly, it disgusts me. So I literally just got my doctors on board, and we committed to bringing this to our social media and our following, to re-educate that we need exposure. We have to hit herd immunity to end this. We can't afford for our, country to be shut down again. And the fact is that people that are in these groups that are in fact vulnerable need to stay home and let the rest of the world spread this disease. All right. I don't even know how I got there because something you said, but dang it, I had to say it.
It is. So thank you so much. It is basically, I spent all morning, I was out last week and got back in here in Multnomah County in Portland, Oregon. In the state, the governor has just mandated, mask wearing for inside activities. And I couldn't, it's like, this is insanity, what is happening in the world. I couldn't agree more. So thank you for your passion and motivating other providers and talking about innate intelligence and our bodies. I mean, we basically co-evolved with viruses for eternity, and we will make it through this one. This one is it's proving to be less deadly than we thought. So now we know that. So let's get on with the show, people, right? Let's go back to living.
I was all for flattening the curve and not overwhelming, because we didn't know how dangerous this was, right? So I was all for it. Immediately when the numbers shifted, when we saw what this was and what it wasn't, immediately we should have started opening, realizing let's get this spread around healthy people. But it didn't happen because the political sniffing started. They sniffed out a vulnerability. They sniffed out an opportunity. And now we are being lied to. People need to be ticked off about it, because we're being used. We're being lied to. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. It's like, I have friends on both sides. All of us are seeing what this is right now. And what this is right now is deception. And the fact is that, healthy people, we're not at risk, but we are at risk for, the number one killer in the world is not heart disease, cancer, or anything. It is poverty. And right now they are shutting down, our country. And there's talks about doing it again. You know what they're doing right now? They're urging people to test. Right. So they're making all these testings more mandatory. So now they're spiking the numbers. Right. But that's what's not spiking is the amount of deaths or the number of people sick.
And this
that's the deception. So what they're doing is they're creating spikes by creating more testing, and they're going to shut down the economy. It's happening here in Utah. They're saying we need to go back to orange because of the 400 more cases. 400 more cases. We had 4,100 more tests. No wonder there's more cases. Don't get me started.
No, this is very important, because I think that's the component. Like, if the debate becomes stopping a virus from spreading, we've lost that. We lost that before we were born. And so I think this is the message for folks, is that it's not what does it mean to be positive, right? So yes, you tested. Does that mean you have antibodies? Does that mean you're sick? No, we have to look at the death rate. And that's really what people need to be asking of their politicians, of their elected officials, and of their community. It is time, because this is ridiculous. I had a gentleman in my office today. He had to pull his child out of daycare, where they are basically doing social isolation experiments on children. The kids aren't even at risk. It's what kind of insanity
is creating fear.
Yeah.
You know, the suicide rates are soaring because of so many reasons.
Yeah.
You know, it is absurd. It is absolutely absurd. This is about health freedom. This is, I mean, I'm telling you, this is why both sides are standing up. This is about our freedoms. If they can get us to do this, what's next? Vaccines are in the pipeline. That's a whole nother conversation because that's a unicorn, you know, where,
Yeah.
oh, we're waiting for the vaccine. Good luck. Good luck. And you know what? You know, I can tell you there's more people that will not put that concoction into their veins than they think. And I'm one of them.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of the folks listening to the show here are also on board with that. You know, I've had other guests kind of speak directly to that. And it's exactly why I created this platform called What the Health. Like, it's a question mark and an exclamation point of like, what the health are we
What
doing
the
out
health
here?
is going on right now,
Yeah.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, have you interviewed Andy Wakefield yet? I'm going to get him on your show.
I would love to have him on here.
Okay, his
Thank
new
you.
movie's coming out.
Yes.
It's the 1986, The Act. It's coming
Yes.
out like next week. We need to promote it because
yes.
wait till you see the deception right now, which has been in discovery, you know, and I've interviewed Bobby Kennedy, who you need to interview. Look, you know, right now there's some stuff coming out that the world needs to hear that you're not going to hear in major media. You're not going to hear it out there, but this movie is bringing out the facts and we need to promote it as a team. So we need to get them on your show.
Love it. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. So folks, you know, you're listening, we're bringing you the news. Like, this is from the ground zero of practitioners that really have your best interests at heart. And we are seeing a lot of civil liberties and freedoms being lost very deceptively. And basically the emperor wears no clothes. The institutions are really bought. We see that transparently now. So maybe that's one of the best things that came out of this. But I hope we don't lose more of our liberties as people, you know, which really brings me back to here, beyond fasting. So we're going to come right back on the topic of what can you do in what do you have power over today, and what is it to help your health and your family's health and your community's health when we're talking about herd immunity, and how do we raise the vibration and vitality of abundantly across the board for the people listening to the show? Like what, you know, that's where this book comes in. You know, you've dubbed a term, you made up a great you know, concept of, you know, the stem cells and what they do for us and our immune system function and our longevity and our health, our vibrancy. You know, one of the biggest things of my purpose and passion is to help people regain their health so that they get back to their creativity and there's more love on the planet, right? That's really what it comes down to. And so there's a lot of, you know, significant, serious things happening in the world, which I, you know, get into discussions with my children and with my tribe here and my patients of, it's insane. You know, we get called quacks, and yet here it is. We have immune systems. We have ability and vibrancy to overcome a simple virus. They're, you know, we're swimming in these things, right? So on the stemnomics, right? On we're really raising this concept around increasing our vitality. So in a step-by-step fashion, you know, I kind of in the intro of the show, I was talking about, I had a nutritionist in Nature Cures. We were really using a ketogenic diet in specifically for cancer therapy over a decade period. And it's a tough one to follow to a T. And I see a lot of folks doing ketogenic diet improperly, right? They're kind of hearing the influences are online of like, here's how you do it, high fat, and they tend to eat more protein than typical. I love that you've really simplified the process into a 7-week program and a step-by-step fashion. So I'm curious, okay, kind of reframing back into our discussion today, with regards to, you know, our metabolism in general, why, you know, how did you put this together? This kind of the weight gain, hormone imbalances, and autoimmune conditions, basically, are they just signs of aging? So coming back into, can we get, I mean, you know, inviting people to age backwards.
Yes. Well, fasting is, look, I believe we're genetically programmed to fast, and we're at a unique time in history where we don't have to. But
Yeah.
if you go back in history, every culture was forced to fast. I mean, whether it was just migrating food sources, environmental stresses, droughts, pressures on the environment, seasonal changes, always changed the diets, which is part of my diet variation concept.
Mm-hmm.
And it also forced famine and fasting. And thereby our microbiome, this is our group of bacteria in our body, it resets. Every fast, it resets that microbiome. And I can tell you, my doctors, the hundreds of doctors that I train would all agree, we could never fix the gut on these severe conditions today if it wasn't for fasting strategies. All right. And there's strategies around there because there's many. But also during a fast, all your epigenetics change, meaning during stressful times. Well, here's one now, right? Genes get triggered and turned on. Chemical exposures, emotional stressors, bad genes get triggered. We call it epigenetics. During times of fasting, we turn those genes off. Something else happens during fasting states. And this is, again, all why we need to fast, right? So to shut down autoimmune, to shut down, change our genetics for all these conditions, we need to fast. So what else happens is the body's so smart, back to the innate intelligence, during a fasting state, the body gets rid of all the bad malfunctioning cells. It's so smart, it doesn't get rid of the good cells, it gets rid of the bad ones. So the immune cells that are hyperreacting, that are just lethargic, they're not doing their job, leads to poor immunity, or the hyper ones that lead to hyperimmunity, autoimmune, food sensitivities, allergies. It literally is so smart that during a fast, it gets rid of those guys. And here's the best part. It stimulates a stem cell and it recreates a new cell that's healthy, functions healthy, does the job that it should. Okay. So I nicknamed this term stenomics, meaning it became something like in the book, I talk about other strategies to actually, stimulate your own stem cells. And because there wasn't a word for it, I nicknamed it stenomics, meaning what we can do to stimulate our own stem cells. And just for people listening, a stem cell is what your body uses to heal, right? So if I cut my hand, you don't form eyeballs on your hand. Your body's so smart. It sends stem cells to the skin. The stem cells become skin cells. They don't become eyeballs, right? So every healing in the body, a stem cell is created to do the healing. So how do we, the older we get, to your part of your question, yes, it's common that we see the increase in these diseases, but if we have healthy stem cells, vibrant stem cells, a vibrant immune system that drives proper stem cell, we heal. We don't develop those conditions. So stenomics, stem cell driving the vibrant stem cells in our body, whether you're 80 or whether you're 40, is critical today. So anyways, that's really what the book is about. And fasting is at the heart of driving autophagy. And by the way, that's the word in the science for getting rid of bad cells in a state of fasting and creating a new stem cell to replace it. All of that happens during a fast. And yet today, who's fasting? Nobody.
Yeah. Right. And, it's like there's no product to sell, right? So there's not, the reps aren't going into the doctor's office saying, hey, you should have your patients fast. So on that, are there more beneficial? So for folks listening, how do you define fasting? And is there an ideal fasted state?
Great question. Because I talk about, I think I start talking about it in chapter 2 and 3, daily intermittent fasting, right? When you look at studies on, and you asked part of this as a question too, aging and aging prematurely, or how do we slow aging down? That's an interest to me. I'm 55 this year, and there was a time when I was measuring the biological clock called telomeres, and I was 10, I think it was 11 years older than my actual age because I was sick at one point, and that really sped up my aging. I didn't like that. Then there's DNA methylation testing, which is measuring the age of your organ system. That wasn't good either. So the good news is I'm far younger than my actual age at my cellular age, but that's why I wrote a book. I've earned this now. I've done a lot to earn that, I should say.
Nice.
But the fact is that, you can actually bring that aging back by eating less often. So step one is part of fasting is just eating less often, meaning I'm going to eat in, say, a 4 to 6, 10-hour window as opposed to eating most of my day. Science shows if you want to age slower, eat less. But here's what we as Americans think that means. Calorie count, push food away. Okay, that doesn't work. That just lowers your metabolism. So how do we eat less? Well, we emulate ancient cultures. We eat less by eating less often. So for example, yesterday and the day before, I ate one meal, both of those days. Now, I do that just randomly at times because I'm very busy, but I have my body so fat adapted, meaning when I'm not eating, I'm burning fat and I'm burning bad cells. I'm going through autophagy. So therefore, it's easy if I have to not eat, and my body will eat the bad tissue, right? Okay, so now today I ate right before this. So what time was that? About 2 o'clock. So you can see, and I'll probably eat at 7 o'clock. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm eating in a 5-hour window. My point is that I'm fasting 19 hours today. Okay. Yesterday I fasted about 24 hours. So in my book, I talk about how to utilize daily intermittent fasting and mixing it up, which is part of my diet variation. And then to your point, there's also extended fast. I talk about how to add in even one 5-day fast a year. I do about 4, but that could be all water, or it could be a partial fast, which I discuss in the book, where you're eating reduced calories and reduced protein in a day. So depending on body size, anywhere between 500 to 1,000 calories, under 20 grams of protein, we call that a partial fast, where you still get this autophagy and stem cell creation. So daily fasting, partial fasting, and water fasting. There's even something called dry fasting, where you literally don't eat or drink, which you get about a 3-to-1 autophagy, meaning your body eats the bad cells. Now, again, probably the best thing to say is do that with doctor supervision.
Yes.
But the fact is that dry fasting, many religious groups do it. And it's even a 1-day dry fast, no food or water. You crush bad cells. So many different types of fasting, Greg.
Yeah, that's built in. What do you say for folks that are listening, and they're on medications? I mean, I think you put the big asterisk in there, which I appreciate, is, really do this with a doctor that is trained in managing your care.
Yeah.
You don't want to just if you're out there kind of just venturing into this territory, I would not recommend a 7-day water fast. That said, it is one of the biggest healing modalities that we had. That's what you started out with saying here. And so there is some cautions with medications. How do you counsel folks around that?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, work with the doctor who put you on the medication, because like if you're on something like insulin, you're going to need a lot less.
Yeah.
So that could put you into great danger, because if you take the same amount and you're in a fast, that's not going to go well. So, I hate to, put the quotes around it, but, really, I mean, always check with your doctor on those medications, because, and again, I mean, many doctors don't understand fasting, but, you still, he would know enough to say, well, if you're not eating, that's going to affect this medication and we better be in close contact.
Sure. Yeah. And I guess I would put the caveat, check with your functional medicine doctors, because they're your primary conventional docs are not going to know how to handle it.
Right.
It just is case in point. I talk to folks around the globe and they're just at a loss. Their doctors don't know what to do with them, and said, you need a new approach. So this is one of the best bedrock pieces of it. So I really appreciate you writing the book on it. On the testing, so you mentioned 2 testings for kind of clock age of your cells and organs. Do you have a preference between those, telomere testing or the methyl DNA?
Yeah. I mean, telomere testing's gotten better. The telomere is basically, if you think of your chromosomes and your DNA as like a shoelace, right? And then on the end, that little plastic coat, think of that as your telomeres that protect the end of your DNA, your chromosomes. And the shorter that gets, the closer to death we become. So we don't want short ones. We know that things can slow or speed that process up. So it is a biological clock, and we obviously don't want short ones. So it is more of an accurate way now of assessing age. It's gotten better. As I said, the DNA methylation test I think is great too. I had it explained to me like this. I think it's a pretty good analogy. Think of the telomeres as the treads on your tires. And then think of the DNA methylation as the parts in your engine. You know, both can wear down, both can affect the performance of your car, the function of your car. So I think they're both, they're different measurements, but they both assess how the car's functioning or will
Right.
function.
Yeah. Nice. That's a great analogy. Yeah. So it is, it's a great thing to measure for folks, you know, just for motivation, right? I'm
Yeah.
guessing, I mean, you knew through your own journey, you know, you went through illness and then you
Right.
measured that, and like, that's a big kick in the pants. Yeah.
Yeah, it was because, you know, I was healthier. I got my health back, but yet here I was still looking at a test that showed that it took
Mm,
a toll on me. You know, and then I got more serious about my own fasting. I got more serious about a lot of the stenomics, everything I teach in that book. I got
yeah.
very, very serious about it.
Yeah. You know, half of the book, we've got some really great recipes on the carb loading days. I'm wondering, for folks that are just getting into this, what are some common pitfalls that people should be aware of?
You kind of tip the hand a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes the very disciplined actually run into, you know, different problems because they're very low carb, fat adapted, and they want to continue that process, and it can start to work against them because, okay, let me back up. So chapter 1 does deal with how to become fat adapted. It
Mhm.
puts people in this ketotic state, which, you know, I don't recommend always staying in. I do believe that we need to move in and out of different diets. And again, that's explained in the book. But in this state, your cells can use two things for energy: sugar or fat. All right. So when we're in this fat adapted state, we're forcing the cells to use fat as its energy source. Okay. 95% of the energy is fat. Now think about it. The body, back to innate intelligence, all it wants to do is survive. So when you realizes that for a period of time, its only fuel is fat, it goes, all right, you know, I just want to save your life. So I'm going to slow down the burning of this fat because it's all I have. So it slows down fat metabolism. All right. The first sign you may get is Joe McCullough and we had a conversation at a seminar in Florida. He said, hey, I'm losing muscle, getting weaker in the gym. And yet I'm really cut my carbs down to 10 grams a day. What do you think the problem is? I'm like, that happened to me, Joe. I said, you know, literally, I started to get more belly fat and I was losing muscle. So I kept lowering my carbs only to realize my body was saving its life. It was slowing down fat metabolism at the cost of my muscle. It will do many things, even create some insulin resistance, not in a disease state, but literally from the DNA of your cell, it will blunt the insulin receptors, and insulin's a fat storing hormone. So thereby helping you store fat. Thank you very much, body. Oh, and it's going to cannibalize your muscle and use some of that for sugar. It's called gluconeogenesis. Or even worse, and it happened to me too, is to slow down fat metabolism. It'll put water in your fat cells and you get this dimply kind of gross looking fat. That's not attractive, I can assure you.
Yeah.
But it does that to slow down fat metabolism, all to save your life. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
But the point is that we can also get some other health conditions. Thyroid hormone can really slow down even more. You know, our sensitivity to our hormones can slow down. The bottom line is, if you throw in some days of feasting, and for unhealthy people, make it healthy carbohydrates, raise carbs up 150, 200 grams a day. Boom, you remind the body it can burn fat again. You're not starving. You send a message, burn up fat, and it starts burning fat again like crazy. It works. So in the book, I talk about how to do that weekly, even how to do that monthly. Ladies, get a pencil out because you're going to want to write this down, especially those in perimenopause or premenopause. So there's magic here. So if you take the week before your cycle and you realize that's when I usually fail on my diet, that's when I usually get the cravings. Well, there might be a reason for that. Again, innate intelligence, your body knows something you don't know. All these hormones conversions are happening at that time. What we have to know is that your body needs insulin to make a lot of those conversions. For example, thyroid hormone has to go to an inactive form to an active form. It needs insulin to do that. So if your carbs are real low and you're very disciplined on your diet, so it just might be the case that you don't make enough of these conversions and you don't feel good for the rest of the month. So what we've learned is by increasing the carbs the 5 days before the cycle transforms your hormone conversions and it affects you the rest of the month. So weekly variation, monthly variation, and even seasonal, where like, right now I'm in a ketosis, a fat adapted state, but a month ago I wasn't, right? So I move in and out just like a ancient culture or a tribe would, purposely, because we know the body to adapt to the diet change. It improves its microbiome. It hormonally optimizes to make the changes that it needs to with the diet. So for me, it's not about the diet, paleo, vegan, vegetarian. I believe there's benefits in all of them. I believe the real benefit is the dietary change, weekly, monthly, and seasonally.
Yeah, that's great. That adaptability really does mimic nature and really does add to more enjoyment in life as well.
You know what? It's so true. If I had to stay in this low carb ketonic state all the time, my body does very well with it. But I'm telling you, I'd beat myself up because I'd just go, I'm so sick of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like when I go purposely with a plan of higher healthy carbs, it's so much easier. Then when I go back, I get sick of that. And then I'm like, I'm going ketosis for the next 2 months. And it's like, it's so easy. The change is so good.
Yeah. And the proof is really on how you feel, how you're performing, your energetic state, and, vibrant health. Like that's where we're shooting for here, right?
Yeah, I mean,
on the
if you
terrain.
think about it this way, the reason why people hang their hat in specific camps, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, whatever it is, they would all tell you a story about this diet changed my life. You know what I'm saying? I was doing this and I found this diet and I felt so good. What they don't realize is, okay, now they're into it for 2 years. New symptoms are starting. This is starting. They don't think it's the diet because this diet helped them. But the fact is it very well could be. And then, so if we can get you to change your diet again, just like when you first changed it, it may not at first go well because there's a change. But then if you push through that, now all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I didn't gain weight and I'm eating higher carbs, or flip that, whatever you want to do. It's like, oh, this is actually better. The magic is, in fact, is the change. It creates a hormone optimization. And that's the real reason people struggle to lose weight.
So that diet variation is a real big key to the success here, because you see a lot of folks, and you wrote about it in the book, the biosphere, experiment of, they just did caloric restriction of 25, 30%, and they got very sick for 2 years. Do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah. I mean, like I think I said it earlier, when we look at anti-aging, there's only one thing that holds up: eat less. So when we look at the science on whether it's a fruit fly, a mouse, a rat, we go, oh, if we restrict their calories, 25, 35%, we get them to live longer. Yeah. Okay. But that drove the Biosphere 2 project, where they lived in this perfect environment and they restricted their calories between those numbers, thinking, my gosh, we're going to see these similar results. They were there for 2 years, complete fail. So they became catabolic. I mean, you could see. Now, they had some stimulation of some of the longevity genes, but ultimately they ate their own organs. Their organs shrunk. They became more prone to infection. It failed. So the message was, we don't want to stay ever in a caloric restricted state. We want to move in and out of it, which made my argument diet variation, right? Move in and out of a caloric restricted state. So we could do a 5-day caloric restriction, AKA partial fast, right?
Yeah. Very
healthy. But then also, I'm a firm believer in 5 days of feasting, as I said, right before, your cycle, ladies. That's a feast, because that stimulates a pathway called mTOR, which is anabolic. That's healing as well. But if you stay there too long, high protein, high carbs, that'll work against you. You see, so you don't want to stay in this autophagy state too long. Too much fasting, too much restriction, no good. Too long. Too much protein, too much abundance, not good either. But short periods in both, that's the magic, and that's the principle of diet variation.
Love it. All too often, we see patients coming into the clinic and they just want the diet. And it's like, this is the diet. It's variation. It is crucial for that. It is a key component of moving in and out of. It's like our tendency as humans is we just want the way. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, in the book, I actually placated to that a little bit, right? Because you have your type A's where they just, I just want to just tell me what to do. So I
Yeah.
did kind of spell out like a rhythm, right?
Yeah.
That works. But, I mean, I still caution against that, right?
Yeah.
My wife just intuitively moves, in and out of fasting states or in and out of different diets. She just kind of knows, right? Women may be better at that, but
I think so.
I mean, honestly, at a certain point, maybe you need some structure when you're not as healthy and kind of know your body, but there is a time where you can literally listen to that intuitiveness, of your body, the cravings, everything.
Yeah. Lovely. So it isn't just fasting or ketogenic diet or the diet variation. You've got a multi-therapeutic pronged approach. So the other components that you bring forth in the book, you want to speak into those a bit?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, years, like, where did my story start? My own battle, I guess I got very sick in 1999 and, it was many years of not functioning very well. That's just putting it mildly.
Yeah.
I got very sick, and everything I teach today, really, it came out of that time, from pain to purpose. And the only reason I teach doctors or have any influence, it's because of what I learned in that battle. But what I teach doctors now is a multi-therapeutic approach, meaning that it's my detox strategies with the fasting strategies, with these diet variation strategies. All that together is the magic. Honestly, it's never just one thing. Matter of fact, today, a lot of people aren't sleeping well, have brain fog, have anxiety, can't lose weight. And I wish it were so simple just to tell people to change their diet today. And this is what I say: the perfect diet in most cases today will not get you well, but you won't get well without it. So diet is important, very important. However, without doing the specific detox of the cells, I wouldn't have got my life back, and nor would have thousands and thousands of people, that have, basically experienced what I teach, not just through me, but, the doctors that I train as well. So, it is a multi-therapeutic approach. Even when you look at studies on Alzheimer's, really these really hard conditions, it is this approach of utilizing autophagy, utilizing, everything we're talking about here, as well as removing the interference and letting the body heal.
Yeah. So let's speak to your cellular detox, because that is really unique in a really gentle component. And we know we all have a level of toxicity living on the planet today. So this is a foundation for the practitioners. I put all of your contacts in the show notes, so we've got all of that out there for folks to learn more. So I do have a lot of practitioners that tune in, lay public, general population as well. So you can look at the different offerings that Dr. Pompa has here, which you're prolific out there and educating. So that root word of Dr. Doceri, thank you for that. So on the cellular detox, you have a unique system that really you cycle folks through on just kind of being part of being on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I said it, all of that came out of my own illness. I mean, there's a right way to do detox. I think when you look at what's in vogue in our space, most people know about saunas. I love saunas, but it's not how I got my life back. Matter of fact, oftentimes it was making me worse. So, yeah. Colon cleanses, it's good to get the bowels moving, but it was making me worse. Chlorella, cilantro, they all made me worse because they're weak binders. So, you learn in it, right? I was doing some pushes myself of glutathione, learned that the hard way. It's a weak binder of things like heavy metals. Although it's good for certain things, it's part of my protocol, but it has to be used correctly. But ultimately, what after my years of studying this, real detox has to be at the cell. And that's my message. To get well, you have to fix the cell. And more specifically, you have to detox the cell. And what does that mean? Look, your cells every day, they have pathways that get rid of toxins. When your cells make energy so you can feel normal, it makes a toxin. It's like burning wood in your fireplace. If the damper's not open, you're in trouble. You're going to die. But that is the cellular pathways opened up are designed to get rid of toxins. The problem is that they're shut down. And that's when you're not feeling well. Your hormones aren't regulating correctly. Your detox pathways of your cell are shut down, one of which is just the cell membrane. It's inflamed. It can't even move good things in and bad things out. The hormone receptors are on the membrane. You can't even hear your hormones. So it doesn't matter what your blood levels look like. The point is you have to detox the cell. So that's a whole strategy that I created over the years, my 5 R's of how to do that. It's a roadmap of how to do that. Yes, you have to keep downstream pathways open as well. It's part of my strategy. You have to use real chelators. Otherwise, you redistribute these metals through the body. All of that is what I call cellular detox, or true cellular detox, to be more specific.
Yeah. Your TCD method.
Yeah. And there's different levels of that, right? I mean, you might see marketed the TCD, and it's a boxed method to make it easier for people. But, my practitioners and, myself, if we take on someone who's challenged, that could look very different because it's different for everybody. What works for Joe is different than Mary, even the doses. Sure. So, I train doctors on how to specifically design a true cellular detox program.
Nice. Well, so you put that together, you've got multi-pronged, you talk about actual stem cell therapies in the book, hyperbarics, PEMF, low-level laser, the multi-pronged approach, which, honestly, that is what we need in today's modern world. Is we do need the multifaceted, unique, individualized program for folks. You've got some great resources in the book as well. With the last kind of quarter of the show here, what type of message would you like to put out there?
Yeah, look, all of those things are exciting. Red light therapies, hyperbaric. I've done them all. But no, there's a cost to those things. I just want to remind people there's no cost to fasting.
Yeah.
Right. Well, a little discipline, perhaps. So I think those things are very exciting. And I couldn't not talk about them in light of some of the subjects in the book. But again, add one fast to your year, extended fast. Watch what happens. You turn off bad genes. You create a new microbiome, reset your microbiome, right? Your body gets rid of bad cells, creates new. Oh, then what if you put a few more of those fasts in, right? What if you did one water fast, but did some partial fast first? Again, I make it very simple for whatever level you're entering, but, remember now, every chapter builds on a concept of the way I live my life. So yes, these are the things you should do before you do a 5-day fast, a more extended fast. But even if you never did, those practices that you will learn step by step, that's how I reverse my cellular age, man. Yeah. And it costs you nothing. So that's the message.
Love it. I love it. Eat, do your fasting, and stack them. So on that diet variation and on the fasting component, when you have traveled around looking at the different facilities, like this is the old water cure in naturopathic medicine, of doing, you go to the sanatorium, you're getting a prescribed meal, then you're going into no meals, and then you're doing like hydrotherapy on top of that. These are, it is the lowest cost entry point is eating less, right? You're so it is, I think it is in vogue right now, but it has been, as you said, it has been in the natural therapeutics realm from the beginning. It's written,
Hippocrates, Plato, our forefathers of medicine, all talk about fasting, is literally the key, right? That, harnessing the innate intelligence. And look, every religious group disagrees on everything, even prayer, except one thing, fasting. Yeah. That should tell us something. And, I want to say this too, is fasting. Yes. We just talked about all the physical benefits, right? It drives all that healing, but be clear. I started a Facebook group, my wife did, called Fasting for a Purpose. It wasn't started for physical benefit. It was started for basically fasting for my son, who was in a hard way. When you look biblically, I brought up religions. When you look biblically at fasting, they really did it more in times of when something they were up against bigger than them. They would cry out to God and they would fast and they would pray. Okay, that's there. Okay, and I'll tell you, one of my favorites is the story in Jehoshaphat, where 3 armies were coming out of the north, far greater than the army of Israel, and Jehoshaphat called a fast of the people, and he fasted them in prayer, and they prayed, and God answered, as he does during fasting times, and I'm witness to that myself. And he came against the armies. They literally turned on themselves and beat themselves. Now, the Bible's replete with stories like this. So my advice to you is if you need a breakthrough in your life, when you're up against something far bigger than you, fast about it. Fast and pray, fast and meditate, but fasting puts you in a state of weakness. It's a different type of weakness because it's odd, because you're building this immunity. Getting rid of bad immune cells, creating new cells, so in some sense you're getting stronger, but you're doing it in weakness. See, there's the biblical message in there. We're strong when we're weak because we let God move, through a fast, and we become more open to answers. So oftentimes I get answers to things when I fast. Our mind, look, it takes so much energy to eat food, assimilate food at the cellular level, digestion. When you go without that, you're freeing up that energy. I call it energy diversion in the book. And you have thoughts. You're able to tap into places of your brain that you're normally not able to even tap into. So you can use it for creative breakthrough, just emotional breakthrough. And by the way, the emotional healing around fasting is huge. Obviously for spiritual breakthrough. But all of that happens during times of fasting.
Yeah, that component of freeing the innate intelligence without the distraction of assimilation or digestion is so crucial in that quieting of the mind. That's a great point. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, and again, in breakthrough, when you're up against something that you just can't handle, and that's where we were with my son, who, by the way, is absolutely amazing. So point is we broke through, and we've done that several times. We've had to do that. But if you're up against something bigger than you and you're at your wit's end, you don't know what to do, try fasting.
Lovely. Well, again, I've got the links to the book in the show notes, Beyond Fasting, a great read and a great reference and resource. You lists it up through the 7 weeks and 7 chapters, all building on each other. And it makes a lot of sense. We've got the research, you've got the clinical evidence to support it. And we've got, history on our side there as well, Dr. Pompa.
Yeah.
Any last parting words for the listeners and viewers of What the Health?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think when we look at where we started this conversation of where we are right now as a nation, as a planet, honestly, I think health freedom is really the topic of the future. And, I mentioned Andy Wakefield's new movie, the 1986 Act. And, I don't need to tell you what that means and why. You'll see when you see the movie. But no time more ever in history has our health freedoms been at jeopardy. And right now we need to stand for our health freedoms. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. This is the topic of the day. We're watching before our very eyes us lose our health freedoms. It may be masks now that they're trying to make mandatory, but then next it's vaccines, which we know there's great risks. And I'll tell everyone to do your homework. If you watch Andy's movie, you're going to go, oh my gosh, I never knew this. Because if you're a science person, the science is not in favor of vaccines. And I'll leave it to you to do the rest of the homework. But health freedom is something we need to vote for today.
Thank you so much. And it is so essential. Fully on board with that mission. Will help get that message out. I really want to thank you for coming out, everybody. This is What the Health, Dr. Greg Eckel. We are here Tuesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific time. Tune in, share us with your loved ones that help us get this word out. It's basically your life. Thank you.
Thanks.